course, allow myself to introduce myself. Yep. All right, are we rolling? It's Big Bike Day, and I'm so excited to tell you all about the brand new Santa Cruz 2022 Megatower. We're going to get into all of the changes. This bike is leaps and bounds ahead of where it used to be. Let's talk about who it's for, what it's good at, how much fun it is to ride, who it's not for. So let's get into it. Well, let's start with who this bike is for. And let's be honest, this bike is for people that can ride a mountain bike better than this guy. Normally I sit here and I tell you these bikes are good for all of these different things. But this is a very dedicated bike for going downhill really fast, riding scary terrain, big, chunky, technical stuff. This bike hauls ass. Now, that being said, you can pedal it to the top, and it's a quite pleasant experience, but it's not designed for fast pedaling. So who is this bike not for? So if you're in terrain where you have to supply the power, where in order to maintain speed, you have to be pedaling, this bike is going to be a whole lot to handle and too much for you to be able to maintain that speed. It's not going to be a lot of fun. But if you're in a situation where it's gravity fed, you get off the brakes and the thing launches forward, that's where this thing really shines. So here locally, one of my favorite trails, Solstice, this bike is just tailor-made for that kind of riding, really chunky, steep, hang on for dear life, get down through the trail. If you're heading up to Tahoe, and going to the bike parks, anything the hardcore riders in your area consider the downhill trails, that's where this bike is really going to shine. So let's talk about this bike specifically. The Megatower is a massive shift forward from the previous version in three main ways. First, in its geometry. Second, in its suspension kinematics. And then it has some pretty neat new features they've thrown in. Ooh, do tell. So let's just talk about where we are in the progression of big bikes. The first big bike I ever got back in the early 2000s, I got a Santa Cruz Bullet back when they were non-electric. It was the acoustic bike. Put a boxer on it. This is back when we used to measure travel in inches. It had a 6-inch travel fork. You are not going to believe that bike had a 68 to 69 degree head angle. The guys, Sam Hill, Greg Menard, those guys were winning races back on bikes with 66, 67 degree head angles. Now you've got modern cross-country bikes with 65, 66 degree head angles. It's just amazing how far those bikes have come and how much effort and energy has been put into geometry to understand how to make them ride better in whatever situation they're trying to improve on. So let's get into the geometry. The first Megatower that came out a few years ago, that was the first Megatower they've ever made. And just to show you that progression, only a few years ago, that bike with a 65 degree head angle, a little shorter reach, shorter wheelbase, seems very dated right now. So let's compare that to see how far this new bike has come. So first of all, you get 5 millimeters more in the reach. So in a large, you go to a 475. The head angle gets significantly slacker, from a 65 all the way down to a 63.5 or 63.8, depending on the flip chip. And the wheelbase got a massive 35 millimeters longer. And also the seat tube has gotten a lot steeper, and that gives you that pedaling position when you're climbing. And the last really cool change that they made to this bike, if you remember the previous one, it had a flip chip in the chainstay where you could go short or long. But what we've realized is that riders of varying heights and sizes need different chainstay lengths to balance out the overall ride. So this bike has variable chainstays. It's an overall range from small to extra large of about 10 mil, but every bike as it gets up bigger gets about 3 mil longer all the way up. So that's a pretty neat change. It eliminates the flip chip and makes the bike handle appropriate for the size of the rider. And after having ridden this bike a couple times, I really feel like this is right where this type of bike needs to be. We've seen things like the Grim Donut on Pink Bike and other bikes that have maybe pushed the envelope a little bit too far, but this sits right where big bikes are, and I feel like we have settled to a spot where we're not going to see the continuation of slacker longer. I think we're there, and this bike just nails all of those things perfectly, in my opinion. So on the suspension front, this bike basically just got longer. The front end goes to 170 across all models with a Fox 38, beast of a fork that can handle anything you throw at it. In the rear, the travel goes from 160 to 165. And one little pro tip that we got from our friends at Santa Cruz, the stroke of the shock is 62.5 millimeters, but there's enough clearance in the frame that if you swap it out for a shock with 65 millimeters, you can get another 5 millimeters of travel in the back. So if you really wanted to, you could balance this out 170 front and rear. So let's talk about how they manage the travel with the suspension curves. The previous Megatower its DNA came out of trail bikes, and it was kind of a beefed up trail bike with more travel. So what that means is it has a lot of activeness, active feeling in the suspension. So it moved a lot, it moved very quickly. And as travel gets longer, that starts to be a little unnerving. So on this particular bike, what Santa Cruz really wanted to do was to make this a downhill bike that you could ride every day, that you could pedal a little bit. So what that means is they have decreased the leverage ratio. So the rear wheel has less of a mechanical advantage over the shock. And what that gives you is more of a straight line all the way through the travel. And it's hard to describe, but the bike feels more composed. It feels more predictable. It feels more stable when you're going through all of that travel. And there's one last really cool thing. The bike finally has a SWAT box. Santa Cruz has meticulously designed a hole in the frame where it's a glove box and you can put in whatever you want. And there's one more innovation. Santa Cruz has put a glove box into the frame where you can pop open and access storage compartment inside the down tube. It comes with what they are calling a tool wallet and a tube purse. So there are some bags in there that you can load up with your stuff, holds it secure. So having all your stuff off your body, in their bike, weight down low, not rattling around in your pockets or your pack, super awesome. Love internal storage. So this combination of the advancements in geometry and the tweaks to the suspension all around makes a bike that is super, super confidence inspiring. I haven't ridden big bikes in a couple years, and my first impression getting on this thing was, holy crap, it's fast. It just wants you to get off the brakes, let it go, and you have so much control and confidence that you really feel comfortable getting in and out of situations that you previously might not. You know, every trail around here that I ride, you know, the technical trails, they usually have one section that is really chunky, you know, root drops, rocky, maybe a rut in it, and then inevitably there's a turn at the bottom. You kind of traverse across and get into the next one. And on a smaller bike, or a bike that's less predictable and confidence inspiring, my riding kind of sensation is to just sort of hang on for dear life, get all the way through the hard part, collect myself at the bottom, and move on to the next section. But one of the things that stood out to this bike was how much control and ability to make micro adjustments in those situations. I can change lines, I can set up for an exit. I have the ability to think through what I want to do rather than just kind of hang on and try to survive. So the geometry and the suspension really shines in those extreme situations, extreme for my riding, and gives me that confidence. One of the things we've been joking around here is this bike is kind of like confidence soaping. It just gives you this injection of confidence to allow you to just take chances, and it can help you fix mistakes and get out of situations, and it's just so much fun to ride that way. So that is the 2022 Megatower. I've been riding so many e-bikes lately that my only knock on the bike is there's no motor. But in all honesty, this bike was so much fun to ride that it kind of has me thinking maybe I need to try out some long travel acoustic bikes again, because this bike just unlocks kind of the beast within you to just let it go, take chances, take risks. It's gonna get you out of those situations, and it's just fun to be kind of right on your limit but still have the control and the confidence. So I had a lot of fun on it. So come on in and check them out. We have them in stock, and if you're not local, you can hit us up on chat on mikesbikes.com, email, phone, we're here for you. So check it out.